So now you've sent out your resume and you get contacted by a principal who wants to engage you. So they provide you with something called an associate agreement.
Because now we have evil music.
Dun, dun, dun.
Michael, why is there evil music?
Associate agreements for associates can have a lot of things in them that are going to make you lose sleep at night, worry, get gray hair, lose your hair, so you basically want to watch out for certain things, because if you just think, oh, I need a job, I've got this contract, I should just sign it, you could then be in a position where you come to us and say, Michael, David, could you take a look and let me know how bad this is? And then we'll look at it and go, oh, God, you signed this? Whew, didn't you think? So, David, what kind of traps? That's what the handcuffs are there for. What kind of traps appear in associate agreements?
I'll just preface it by saying, don't forget the person providing you, the hiring dentist providing you with the associate agreement, has asked someone to prepare it for them, or they prepared it themselves, to their best interest. This is them offering you a job to their betterment. So one of the things that a hiring dentist might put in there, which a hiree, an associate, may not like, a holdback clause.
What's a holdback clause?
A holdback clause essentially says that if you're getting a percentage of your of the work you're doing, of the billings, the hiring dentist will hold back a percentage of that money. It might be a flat rate or a percentage that they're not going to pay to you in the event there's remedial work to be done down the road, or in the event they fire you and they just don't want to pay you the full amount. So they'll look to try to hold back some of the wages or salary that you've earned.
What kind of numbers have we seen?
We've actually seen someone try to hold back about $50,000, and then if the relationship terminates, they want to hold that money for a year before they eventually release it out to the associates.
Do we, when we're representing associates, like holdbacks? No. When we're representing principals, yes. So that's something that you guys should be mindful of. Another thing, a big thing, is the way that the relationship is structured. Employee versus independent contractor. Do you guys know the difference? Everybody's shaking their heads? Yeah.
I don't know which way they're shaking their heads.
Are you shaking yeah or no? Or
give them a 15-second rundown.
Okay, 15 seconds. You going to time it?
Maybe I'll just do it.
Okay, go ahead.
The hiring dentist always wants to hire an associate as an independent contractor, because in the employment relationship sphere, they don't have to do source deductions. They don't have to pay you the same way. They may be exempt from certain employment laws. Where if you're an associate, often you might want to be an employee, because then you fit within a certain legal catchwork where you'd be entitled to more things than you would be as an independent contractor.
Basically, if I was a principal, I save money by hiring you as an associate. Correct. I can fire you so much easier, and you have to be responsible for your own taxes and remittances and things like that. So the reality is, the CRA, let's say you guys were independent contractors, as per the agreement, doesn't necessarily mean the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, won't go after you and say, you know what, you're just an employee. You can't deduct all those things. And where's the CPP and EI and all the other things you should have been deducting, plus interest, plus penalties. So we're going to come after you, and we're going to come after the principal. So the key thing is this. If you are truly an independent contractor, the reality has to reflect it. You may do things like set up your own corporation, have business cards, market, service multiple dentists. This way you actually look like an independent business versus you're just going in 9 to 8, Monday to Friday, and getting a paycheck, doing what you're told. That looks and smells and feels like an employee. So just be mindful of that. That's a big trap. Okay, you want the agreement to reflect the reality of the relationship. David, what other traps are there?
Another good trap would be, for example, the time for termination of the relationship. Often the principal will want to say, I can terminate your, whether it be the associateship or employment, on about 2 weeks' notice. But if you want to leave and go somewhere else, they want you to give them, for example, 6 months' notice.
Is that fair?
2 weeks, 6 months. Doesn't quite balance.
Yeah. A big thing that we see a lot of is restrictive covenants. Restrictive covenants. 2 words that, who the heck knows what that means? Non-competes, non-solicits. Have you guys heard of those things before? Okay, pop quiz. How many of you believe in the associate context, so not one dentist buying a practice from another dentist, but a principal engaging an associate? In that context, are non-competes legal and enforceable? Hands up if you think yes. You got 3, 4, 5, 6. Hands way up, people. Let's see some hands. All right.
Still 6.
So you guys believe that a contract, an associate contract that says, you agree, if you leave, you cannot compete down the street, you cannot compete for 2 years.
Reasonable. Maybe if it's like a small radius and like a short amount of time.
Okay, even if it is reasonable, if it's reasonable, completely reasonable, I want to see from everybody who thinks that that is enforceable, that if you violate that, the principal can go after you. Hands up, way up, way up. Little bit more, a little bit more. We got almost everybody.
You all need to read
Claudio's
our book.
hands are not. Why, Claudio? Why aren't your hands up? Why?
There are so many factors that cannot enforce your creature practice.
Guys, did you listen to Claudio? He's absolutely right. Those types of clauses will not be enforced by a court except in very exceptional circumstances. And I mean very limited. There's cases out there, you can read them on our website, that basically the associate gets to walk free. Because no matter how reasonable these clauses may appear, it's just too harsh. You guys have spent years and lots of time and effort and money going to dental school. You shouldn't be handcuffed, right? It's too harsh. What about non-solicits, David? Are non-solicits enforceable and legal?
Why don't we give a pop quiz to the class again? Guys, are non-solicits enforceable? Yes. Hands way up.
What's the difference between non-solicit and non-compete?
Oh, there's a question. Difference between a non-compete and a non-solicit clause. Michael, do you want to?
So non-compete, you cannot practice dentistry in a certain time frame and a certain geographic area. Non-solicit is for a set period of time. You will not communicate with our patients in an attempt to solicit them from us.
And it's not only the patients, it can also be the staff of the practice or maybe other associates at that same location.
Or referring dentists.
Or referring dentists as well if maybe you have a specialty or a neighboring practice.
So what do you think? Are non-solicits enforceable? So you leave and within a certain time frame you start contacting those patients, but you've got something in writing that says you're not supposed to do that. Is that legal? Is that enforceable? Hands up. Okay, somebody who had their hands up, I want to hear from you. Why do you guys think it's enforceable? Go ahead.
We were told that.
Who told you?
We were also told that if the clause is reasonable within a small radius or short distance of time, it can be enforced.
So the word you're looking for, the two words are, it depends. So it's not a yes or a no. Think like a lawyer. It depends.
Yes.
Does it matter that this is an associate and not an independent contractor?
It does. The context does matter. Well, in the context of a principal and an associate, like I said, non-competes are not enforceable. Non-solicits are enforceable. In the context of a dentist who's buying a practice, paying a lot of money and expecting the seller not to compete and not to solicit, the courts have said, oh yeah, we're going to enforce those for sure, as long as they're reasonable. It depends, right? So if we can summarize our tips, you want to look like an independent contractor if you are indeed an independent contractor. You want reasonable non-competes and non-solicits. And again, the reason I included non-competes is because the principals and their lawyers probably aren't going to care what the courts say. They just want you to sign it. So you might as well ask for something reasonable. And what's reasonable, you could be flexible. For example, if you were there one day, should you sign an agreement that basically says, if you're here for one day and we get rid of you, you have signed a 5-year non-compete and a 5-year non-solicit? No. Why not stagger it? Why not say, listen, the longer I've been here, the more harsh it can be. But if I'm here for a few months, I don't want any kind of these restrictions on me.
So if you guys are wondering, can you actually negotiate an associate agreement? Just wait for 2 more slides.
Okay. Oh, genuine pre-estimate of damages. What does that mean, David?
In 10 seconds or less, the courts in Ontario do not like penalty clauses in contracts. One should not be penalized for things. So, one way around penalty clauses are genuine pre-estimates of damages. Michael?
Wow. Okay. Basically, you agree to pay if you violate. Normally what happens is if you violate a non-compete or a non-solicit and you're sued and you go to court and you lose, the judge will say, all right, Mr. Principal or Mrs. Principal, what are your damages? And they have to get into that whole trial of figuring out what did the associate dentist do in terms of harming the principal. If you have signed an agreement that basically says, from the get-go, if I violate this, I agree to pay you $100,000, that's it.
If the principal dentist is going to market you and spend money advertising you as being part of the practice, and there's a cost element to that, you can genuinely estimate what that cost might be, and that, for example, could be a genuine pre-estimate of damage. The recovery of those advertising dollars spent on you if you're just going to get up and walk out the door the next week.
So when we're representing associates, do we like to see genuine pre-estimate of damages of $50,000 or $100,000? When we're representing principals, do we like, yes. We want those associates to pay if they leave too soon. What are chart fees, David?
Chart fees are almost another way of doing a genuine pre-estimate of damage. If you do happen to breach something and you leave with patient charts and you take patients with you, you can approximate the value of that patient. And you may say, for a hypothetical number, $350 per patient chart that you may walk out the door with.
And you would have to pay this chart fee. And so it's another form of penalizing you for violating, for example, a non-solicit.
But not a penalty.
Yeah.
A genuine pre-estimate of damage.
What about a right of first refusal? Do you guys know what a right of first refusal is? It's like God opening up the doors of heaven for an associate. We rarely see them, but the idea is, you know, I don't want to be out there looking for practices to buy. It's a crazy market out there. I just want to associate for a few years and then buy that practice. And the principal says, all right, I will give you a right to buy the practice before everyone else. And you can exercise that right. Now, how often do we see these rights of first refusal in favor of the associates?
Once in a blue moon at best.
Yeah.
But it's something you can ask for and think about, especially if you can bring a certain value to the practice. You're going to be investing a lot of time and energy in helping build up this dentist, the hiring dentist practice. You may have some interest in staying on board rather than the dentist putting the practice on the market and opening it up to anyone who may wish to buy the practice.
All right, let's take
So a right of first refusal effectively says, if I, the hiring dentist, am going to sell my dental practice, before I sell it to someone else, I'll give you the right, I'll refuse the other offers, and I'll give you the right to buy the practice before everybody else.
Yeah.
That's
It's an option that the associate has to purchase the practice before anybody else can buy it.
So we got a question. It'll go above market value.
It'll be above. You may be in a competitive bid scenario. It could turn real ugly.
I don't see the advantage. The principal will come to you anyway. So
I'm going to give you two examples. Claudio, I'm going to give you two examples. First example is, these are real examples, okay? The associate had worked for a principal for 9 years without this. The associate was always told, we're going to sell this thing to you. Then somebody comes along, convinces the principal, put your practice for sale on the market, you'll get more money. So the principal did.
Competitive bids.
And the associate, whom we represented, had to pay hundreds of thousands, not 100, not 200, but $300,000 more
to jump over top of that other buyer.
Yeah.
Where if they had the right of first refusal, they could have gotten in either A, without the bidding war, or B, at a better price point.
That you can determine the price in advance or based on a formula, but there is some certainty. If you don't have that right of first refusal, it's whatever the market dictates at that time.
I'll do you one better. Do you like to have choice and option in your life? This is a choice and an option. If you can get it, take it. Question from the back. Question from the back. Guy at the muscles.
Non-competes today, like are there associations that you can do within the radius of a practice that you're associated with?
So what the question is, if you have a non-compete, can you still associate within the radius? If the agreement contemplates carve-outs, which means exceptions, like you tell the principal, hey, I want to work over here or work over there, can we reflect that in the agreement? Sure, yeah, you can.
So if you have a non-compete, you said, I signed a non-compete clause for 5 kilometers, you can't work at another dentist's office within 5 kilometers for a certain number of years?
After you leave. So during the duration, so basically you got to read the agreement. The agreement's going to say something like, as long as you're an associate here, you can't compete. And after you leave, you can't compete within a set time and a set geographic area. If there's exceptions to that rule, they should be reflected in the agreement.